I do not love Brussels, I love Britain. I'm the first to say that there are still many ways in which Europe needs to improve, and that the task of reforming Europe does not end with yesterday's agreement. And I will never say that our country couldn't survive outside Europe. We are Great Britain. We can achieve great things.
I think that Britain will separate from the EU. I think maybe it's time, especially in light of what's happened with the craziness that's going on with the migration, with people pouring in all over the place. I think that Britain will end up separating from the EU. That's my opinion. I'm not endorsing it one way or the other, but that's my opinion. I think a lot of people want to see that happen. I see him, he looks like a good character and probably a nice guy, and maybe he thinks politically it's popular. I will tell you that when I talked about the Muslim ban, there was and that's a temporary ban, just so you understand, but until we figure out what's going on. But when I talked about the Muslim ban, he was very strong against me. He said, like, they have no problems in London at all.
Talk to the people of Britain and give me a message to reassure them.
I love the UK. I think it's an amazing, just one of my favorite places in the world. I love the people. My mother, again, born in Scotland, so proud of Scotland. And, you know, I just think that if I become president, I know that we're going to have a fantastic relationship. And I will do everything within my power to make sure it stays that way. I think the relationship will be better, actually much better and much stronger than it is right now.
I have just been to see Her Majesty the Queen, and I will now form a government that can provide certainty and lead Britain forward at this critical time for our country. This government will guide the country through the crucial Brexit talks that begin in just 10 days and deliver on the will of the British people by taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union. It will work to keep our nation safe and secure by delivering the change that I set out following the appalling attacks in Manchester and London, cracking down on the ideology of Islamist extremism and all those who support it, and giving the police and the authorities the powers they need to keep our country safe.
Religion, war, conflict, money, natural resources, that will always divide people. And if we're going to make the world a better place, I truly think we should think about bringing people together. We shouldn't be isolating ourselves. We should be looking to each other for common solutions. And I know this is quite a bizarre attitude to have, but the fact of the matter is, we all inhabit this planet together. This nationalism that seems to be pervading society everywhere, and just thank goodness Marie Le Pen didn't get it in France.
So my main concern is that when the result was announced, I was unsure about who was the right person to kind of lead these discussions. I felt at the time that no real political party had an idea about actually what was best for the country, and even though some parties were supporting the idea of Brexit, I feel like they didn't actually know what the people wanted or how best to achieve it.
Britain, we are a very small island, and I truly believe the way forward is more international cooperation, not less. That's my opinion. So evidently I voted to remain in Europe. I think the whole notion of nationalism, particularly English nationalism, is okay. You know, I'm proud of what British people have done. I'm proud of what happened, even going as far back as, say, the war.
Okay, what are my views on Brexit? I think that the country's got what it wanted. I mean, that's the point of diplomacy, right? Is we vote for democracy. Screw that, that's a stupid answer.
But, to get back to my original point, I don't necessarily believe in the fact that, you know, we have got these identities. We've got, you know, we have a national identity in terms of British, but in terms of like, yeah, we're English, devolution. I think that's completely the wrong direction. I think we should be looking to open up borders more as opposed to close borders off. And okay, the argument is immigration is something which is out of control in this country. I think what we're failing to see is the reason why these people are wanting to come to our country.
I voted to remain. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go, and I think that's because a lot of false promises were made during the campaign to leave. Lots of money was mentioned and promised when really they didn't have a clue what they could promise or what Brexit would look like, and I think that misled a lot of people.
Humans, being humans, we've always loved destroying each other. It's part of human nature, unfortunately. It's our kind of like animal instinct, I believe, which is a sad, horrible thing, because you would have thought our rational part of our brain would actually stop that. But
recently with the election, people such as Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn are giving their ideas about what a hard Brexit might be, what a right type of Brexit might be for the people. But still, I think we're a long way away from negotiating something which is positive for Britain and its people. I think that we need to be having more discussions with major leaders around the world, especially in Europe, about how we're going to secure what's best for Britain.
right, so my views on Brexit are that there seems to be, at the moment, starting I think all the way back at the Arab Spring, a global rejection of traditional politics.
Democracy. People voted and they've chosen to leave the EU. So while I don't think my opinions really matter at this point,
but this nationalism that seems to be pervading everybody, in my opinion, is that completely the wrong direction. We should be looking to build bridges, not knock them down. We should be looking to cooperate, not agitate our neighbours. We should be looking for more globalisation, in my opinion, as opposed to less globalisation. And
also protecting those people who are offering a lot to our society. There's lots of people coming into the country, and we need to make sure that we're doing right by them, supporting those people coming in and supporting the people going back out again. I think it's a two-way system which needs developing and protecting. Personally, it doesn't actually affect a lot of what we're doing in school, but there's going to be a lot of students who are trying to escape problems around the world, which are going to struggle to gain access to the country and maybe gain access to education, which we offer to them because of these problems. And that's definitely something that Theresa May, Jeremy Corbyn have to be thinking about if we're going to protect all people in Britain.
there seems to be an international movement to force out old ways of doing things, a rejection of the traditional methods.
We just have to hope that we get the best outcome we can for ourselves now. It's going to happen. All the paperwork's been done, and once the negotiations begin, we just have to hope that we get what we can out of it.
So, my opinion is that we should have stayed, categorically, and the reasons for that are the fact that the world, in my own opinion, feels more divided than ever. It feels like we have built more barriers between ourselves. Look at the recent terrorist events in this country, in Europe, France, Germany, Belgium, but then you've only got to look in the Middle East, and obviously some place that everybody always forgets is the Far East as well. We're seeing terrorist attacks on a almost daily basis. Now,
I'm hoping that the Conservative government can now get a good deal for the UK, but I don't think they're going to get what the public actually want.
You've got to look at, like I said, the Arab Spring, those revolutions in the Middle East, Trump getting into America, which took everybody's surprise. And it was absolutely no surprise, even though it was close, that we actually went with Brexit. At the end of the day, we are a single species, Homo sapiens. We are guests on this planet, and we should embrace everybody on this planet. As I said, not building borders, but knocking borders down. So yeah, my opinions on this are quite strong, but I believe in what I believe, not only on a scientific basis, but what I believe is an ethical basis. So yeah, end of discussion.
How young people abroad view the UK before and after Brexit. We asked polling firm Ipsos Mori to carry out 2 surveys to find out what young people from the G20 nations thought of the UK before and after its vote to leave the European Union. There was good news. Overall, the survey showed that the UK is perceived very well. It's in joint 4th place with France, behind Canada, Australia and Italy. The overall attractiveness of the UK didn't change. Nearly 3 in 4 people said they found the UK attractive. But there were big differences between countries. The EU countries surveyed were generally gloomier about their future engagement with the UK. Young people in Germany, France and Italy viewed the UK more negatively. There was a 19% net negative impact on the UK's attractiveness, which is concerning for the country's reputation in the EU. On the other hand, the Commonwealth countries and the rest of the G20 said the vote to leave the EU made the UK more attractive. People still generally trusted the UK. They trusted the people more than the government. The UK came joint 4th with Japan as a country whose people can be trusted, behind Canada, Australia and Germany. But fewer people thought after the vote that the UK values diversity, is open and welcoming and tolerant. Fewer people also thought that the UK government works constructively with others, treats people in the UK fairly, or gives its fair share of aid. Despite the UK being only one of 2 countries in the G7 to spend the full target amount on aid in 2016. Our study shows that people in the UK are still well liked, but if the next generation overseas consistently sees them as less open and welcoming, the attractiveness of the UK may suffer.
A little bit of a misunderstanding with a lot of people. They thought Brexit began back in June when everybody voted in the UK and Brexit voters won. Brexit actually officially begins tomorrow. Get ready for a potentially rocky road as British Prime Minister Theresa May triggers what's called Article 50, kicking off the 2-year process of this divorce, for lack of a better term, where the UK extricates itself from the European Union. While Prime Minister May says she's, quote, excited about the new deep special partnership she foresees with the European Union, is she right on the money or totally delusional? Will the separation destabilize global markets and roil your money right here in the U.S.? Well, look who's saying that negotiations could turn, quote, vicious. Right. Irish Prime Minister Enda Kenny says could get ugly and vicious, and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker says it will be, quote, very, very difficult. In a Fox Business exclusive, let's get the real story from the EU ambassador to the US, David O'Sullivan, who, of course, Ambassador, you felt that the UK should stay, but it's been 9 months since the Brexit vote, and the sky is falling group turned out to be wrong. Things seem to be relatively stable, although the pound is markedly weaker by about 16%. But does this get worse, better?
Well, I think, as you say, Liz, since the referendum until tomorrow, it's been a little bit of a phony discussion about the Brexit that hasn't happened. Tomorrow it gets real and the process begins in earnest with the 2-year time frame that you've described. I think we then have to see how this plays out in reality and what's the judgment that industry and business interests will make of the new situation as it emerges from these negotiations. What are going to be the terms on which the UK leaves? What's going to be their future relationship with the rest of the EU? And are there going to be transitional arrangements? These are the issues I think that business watchers will be looking at very carefully.
She sure sounds like she wants her cake, which is, of course, to leave the European Union and to eat it too, which is to have this new, deep and special relationship, and that's code for trade with the European Union. Does she get that? Does she get everything she wants?
I think we have to be very clear. You can't leave the European Union and then have the benefits that you would have had if you'd remained within the European Union. And there is going to be a loss of access for the UK to the European market, because nothing they can have as an external country can be on a par with the full membership of this large and very wealthy and very successful economic unit which they have at the present time. The precise details of the new arrangements will only be known as they emerge from the negotiations, and obviously that's going to be a fairly tough negotiation and probably will take some time.
Well, so we don't know yet, but here's what we do know, and it's a fact, that Scotland's leader, Nicola Sturgeon, is making the case for another Scottish independence referendum, and I believe Northern Ireland as well, but this time it's not about leaving the EU, it's about leaving the UK, correct? Now, could this be that lifeline for the European Union as everybody else says the EU is going to die?
Well, I don't agree with you that everyone says the EU is going to die. I haven't really heard that except when you just said it now. The EU is actually economically performing extremely well. Growth is up, unemployment is down, and the economic outlook for the EU 27 is actually fairly vibrant. And it will still be one of the largest economies in the world and the largest trading bloc in the world even after the UK leaves.
Well, so sir, I only say that because Greece and Italy are massive question marks. Italian banks are in significant debt. We know the situation in Greece, and they haven't adhered to the rules of the European Union for quite some time.
Greece is actually, we are negotiating the conditions of the bailout, and Greece, the Greek economy has actually turned a very distinct corner. They will grow 2.5% this year and possibly as much as 3.5% next year. So I think Greece has actually turned a corner. Yeah, well, indeed, perhaps from a slightly lower base. It's true that there is an issue with the banks in Italy, but that is being addressed, and I think that the European Union economy is actually in pretty good shape. It's still one of the two largest economies in the world, depending on the exchange rate between ourselves and the Americans, and I think the outlook is quite positive. After what will be the precise conditions that will prevail when the UK leaves, we will only know when these negotiations go forward over the next 2 years.
I've just got a bit of time left, but what would you say to the American viewer right now who has a decent stock portfolio, no exposure to the United Kingdom, or so they think, because there are a lot of U.S. companies that do have exposure and sell a lot to the United Kingdom. What would you say to our viewers here in America if they say, I don't plan on going to the UK, it doesn't matter to me?
Well, I think the prudent thing for anyone to do at this point in time is to wait and see. There are too many, I think, uncertainties and unknowables at this point in time for anyone to make a very informed judgment about what the economic situation may look at how the economic situation may look at the end of this. I think both the UK and the European Union want to try to arrive at the best possible deal in their interests and in ours. Whether that will be achievable will only become clear as we go forward with these negotiations.
Ambassador David O'Sullivan, I thank you very much. You're the European Union ambassador to the U.S., and I appreciate very much your clarifying things for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.